Very nice to see you all. This is the second session of our new ACL Year-Round Mentorship program. Can everyone hear me? Just maybe a thumbs up to be sure. Okay, great. So yeah, this program is based on the several very useful D&I mentoring initiatives at our ACL conferences, as some of you have definitely taken advantage of. So these are very useful sessions and have had a lot of interest. But we also discussed that these are to only conference timings and also need conference registration, papers, and so on. So we thought this should not be the case, and in the world and year-round should be able to have access to mentorship. Hence, this ACL Year-Round Mentorship program was created along with Vinod Prabhakaran, Jian, Ashkan Kazemi, and Lisa Bauer. So we finally were able to start our first session last month on how to choose an NLP project. Today's topic will be building collaborations and networking. And then we already have a third session lined up for next month on getting the most out of an NLP conference. And then hopefully this process year-round with the help of awesome volunteer mentors in our community, just like Barbara and Sue joining us today. So great. So the plan for today is simple. We will basically do very short introductions for the three of us as the mentors for today's sessions, and also give you some initial suggestions for a couple of minutes. And then we'll keep the rest of the time for your question answers and discussions. Sorry, we won't be able to have everyone's intros, but since we have such an amazing large group, you can introduce yourself in the chat, also when asking a question in the chat. And then the very last bit is that like I said, we'll answer your questions the best we can, but we'll also have a lot of discussions and learn from each other. And the overall topic today is building collaborations and networking. And I'm joined with two other great mentors, Dr. Barbara Plank from IT University of Copenhagen and Dr. Sujan from A-Star Institute of Infocom Research. And actually, we also have Ada and Zijing with us here. So welcome, everyone. And yeah, so let's maybe start, maybe Barbara, if you would like to start with your introduction and some initial suggestions. Thanks.
Yeah, thanks a lot. So first of all, thanks a lot for the invitation to join this mentorship. It's really an honor and a really great initiative, for the whole community. So thanks a lot for initiating that, Radha, Mohit, and all involved essentially. So yeah, I'm Barbara Plank. I'm a professor at ITU, and I'm working on a lot of, my interests in NLP are quite broad. So yeah, you could find me a lot in the processing from syntax to applications in that area. But here I was, the topic today, what we're discussing is effectively collaboration and how to network. And if I can, give a little bit of my perspective on this, which is like collaboration and networking is really essential, right? Also as part of your PhD education, or even you can think of, encouraging even younger people on trying to find peers in a way, or building up a network early on, because you will just learn so much from others and tap into, different perspectives, different cultures, and different environments. Maybe a little personal note on this. I moved around in Europe in different universities, and in each lab and each place it's different. So you can learn also from that side. So if you have also a chance to go to visit, that would be one concrete suggestion perhaps as well. But on the topic in general, I can just say, collaborating is it's great. It's also challenging because, my suggestion would be try to establish a collaboration as much as you can, but it's not easy to know a priori if it goes well or not. So perhaps my suggestion here is in fact also to try to find, when reading papers about your research, see who are the people who are working on different, interesting topics in your area, and then even when you have a chance to get to them, to talk to them at a conference or virtually, or reach out to them via email, then find people who are really also interested in the same topics than you are, and that makes collaboration a lot of fun. And that also gives you an, this perspective of enriching your own view, because you're, you might see the things a bit differently, and you get a new perspective. So that's the added value by doing collaborations. But we can go into much more detail on this, because it's also a challenging thing. It might not work out, so it's also often sometimes you need to try and see how it goes, but also be able to adapt to different people and listen to people, or even just talk about expectations in the beginning as well. I think I will stop here, because before I go much more into, let's go to the next one, and I'm happy to add more notes here.
Thanks, Barbara. Sue, do you want to? Yeah, I think you're here now, right? Okay, great. Thanks.
Yeah, yes. Thanks, Mohit. And hello, everyone. And thanks for the invitation of ACL mentorship team, RADA. And yes, I'm from A*STAR, I2R, Singapore Government Research Institute, Institute for Infocom Research. I lead the natural language processing team, there. I'm also co-director of I2R, co-director of Baidu I2R Research Center, the first overseas joint laboratory of the Chinese internet search giant, which was set up since 2012. Besides, I'm also the co-director of DCAR program, a fairly large interdisciplinary international collaboration program just started October, and which involved 25 organizations from both Singapore and France, including A*STAR, CNIS France, National University of Singapore, and the National Technology University. So it happens that, collaboration is a kind of a very important topic, and I happens to have years of experience on various collaborations with academia and government organization, as well as industry partners. So I'm happy to share with you here. And thanks, Mohit, for the sharing of initial question list from the ACL DNI mentoring session. I feel it's quite useful to organize our some sharing here. So I may provide my view on a couple of questions here. So one of the questions I say is what makes a good collaborator? How can I become one? And what can I tell if someone else will be? So I would say that a collaborator needs to have something to offer in a collaboration. For example, expertise, resources, and a good collaborator. So expertise, for example, you are expert on certain algorithm, which is very important for certain collaborative work. And a good collaborator, of course, needs to be keen and responsible for the collaboration, and with enough bandwidth as well in addition. Similarly, with regarding to the part, how can I tell if someone else will be? So I would say that these are kind of, Barbara doesn't, elaborate, but yeah, it's something need to be carefully handled. So you might need to check whether the potential collaborator has something that you really need in your collaboration. And even if you are not familiar with the candidate, you might still be able to judge, you see, from some activities this collaborator involved previously, say professional service, to roughly judge whether someone is responsible roughly. And certainly it will be good if you can get a third-party opinion, if possible. Still, I would say that I'm also quite careful. I would say that it would be good for you to confirm, you see, the schedule and its expected outcome before the collaboration starts. Then you may adjust according to the progress afterwards. So these are my view on one of the questions. So there's another question regarding to establishing interdisciplinary collaborations and doing interdisciplinary work. So I happen to, just now I mentioned the big interdisciplinary program, which including artificial intelligence, engineering, and social science, which is through a ground call by invitation. So I have something, my relevant work and the international standing to offer there. So my point is, first of all, one is to have something to offer. I mean, even in the interdisciplinary collaboration, you may grab the opportunity when it comes. Certainly, I would say some outreach activities. For example, giving tutorials and showing demos to other disciplines would help. I think with this, I may just conclude my, you see, self-introduction and some brief views. Mohit, can I, you see, would you like to continue?
Thanks a lot for both the comments. So my introduction, I can keep brief. So I'm Mohit Bansal. I'm also an associate professor in a university here known as University of North Carolina, UNC-Chapel Hill. So my research is mostly focused on aspects of combining language with vision and robotics and multimodality plus grounding. And also we do work on things like natural language generation, summarization, explanation generation, and so on. And then also, I think to keep some initial discussions short, maybe I'll also pick up one of the questions that was in some of the older conference mentoring lists that we were seeing. And also, actually, coincidentally, a similar question popped up in the chat already, is how do you reach out for collaborations or for networking? So I think the basic idea should be that it should be a collaboration will be successful when for the topic that you're interested in, right? You actually are very passionate about it, and you have done some initial reading and homework when you reach out to people, right? So when you are reaching out, I think you will have more success of making a long-term connection when your email or your message is clear about the fact that you read, for example, some of the papers or works from the person you're reaching out to, and you have thought about the method, the pros and cons, and you don't have to have any initial great ideas, right? But just showing the fact that you care about the topic, you have thought of the pros and cons of it, you maybe reproduce some of the initial baselines, you have some very initial ideas of what your interest in that research direction is. That can be a very good starting point for a conversation. And it also shows to the person that you care deeply about the topic and that work, as opposed to maybe like a blanket cold email like that's been sent out to people, right? So in some sense, the collaboration will happen more naturally when there is evidence of deep interest from you. And also it will happen more usually in another scenarios when combination of expertise A and expertise B, right? So that would be the interdisciplinary angle that Sue was discussing, where, for example, the collaboration can be very natural when two groups want to combine their interests and their expertise to be able to do something bigger and joint between the two topics. So that would be some of the initial thoughts. Also, the other thing I would say is that you should take advantage of professors or industry researchers around you locally, right? Every place has a lot of good researchers and professors in every city, every country. So you can also first work closely with them, be able to do some good initial research, which they will also appreciate a lot, because they are looking for, everyone's looking for good students and good collaborators. And then you could, through them, also reach out to someone and establish a collaboration. So these are some different ways of answering the question by some of you on the chat, that how do you reach out? Do you just send an email? So basically read a lot of their papers, show deep interest in the topic, some initial thoughts. Don't worry about whether your ideas sound good or bad. All ideas are good starting points, right? But at least it shows that you're deeply interested and you are thinking and reading deeply. And also, like I said, start some initial work if possible with researchers and professors around you. And this way you can also have a more deeper connection when you're reaching out for collaborations. And then the last thing I'll say is that the collaboration also works really well when it's about the people, right? Not just, okay, this is like the publication that we're aiming for, or this is the final product that we're looking for. So these collaborations will work much longer if the work style and the collaboration style is similar between the involved parties. And these things take time to establish. So they will not be some shortcuts involved that, okay, let's just do something quickly and get a paper out, right? So these would be my initial thoughts, but since it's already 10:20, let's pause here and start taking questions from all of you in more detail. Great, so yeah, we'll just take brief answers from Barbara and Sue on the first, like there was this whole theme of question on how do you find a collaborator and how do you reach out? So maybe a few more thoughts, diverse thoughts on that will be great.
Yeah, all right. So if I can chip in here. So how do you find a set of collaborators? Definitely first do the homework by reading a lot. Who is actually working in these topics? That's one way, right? The second way is really meeting people. In real life, it's easier. I hope we're getting back there. In joining people who are going for dinner, if there's a group, really be there to join people you don't know. In that way you might start talking to someone, and when you talk about what are you doing, what are you currently interested in, and the person might even yeah, maybe that other person is working on that right now, and so you could actually also find connections via connections, essentially. So use this network effect of reaching out to people, because maybe someone has just started working into this topic and has not published yet, or close to publishing, and can be very, actively working on it, than having published a paper like 10 years ago, right? And it's difficult to connect sometimes back to that. And that's one thing. So through papers, but also through real networking event, and just daring to start talking to people. But then how to establish it? Of course, there's this way of approaching people also via email, right, that we just heard. And here I second what Mohit said. It's very important to target the email to the person, to have done the homework, and show that you really care, and that it's also worthwhile for the other party to involve and engage into a dialogue. This can be really just, you have time for a chat of what about this and this, and I saw this recently. It doesn't need to be already even a project you had in mind to carry out with this person, because you don't know how, two parties involved. Maybe the other person right now has not the time or the resources or the other people to work on it. But the person might even, just to even, for the person to get to know you, that you're working on it, to reach out to you later, or maybe it starts off a collaboration project. So that's another good point. Importantly is, in fact, that not just sharing the interest, but really also this match on the personal side. In the style you're working, in the trust you essentially need to build up via this collaboration. This is not given, right? And contributing to building this trust and respect for each other that's kind of the key to make really long-term successful collaborations work. And how to do that. Yeah, this is something you need to also, be open to, but also maybe proactively contribute to. Like Mohit said, maybe you have already a baseline or something ready, right? If you reach out, or contribute an idea or start a discussion. But this trust thing is really something that needs to be built up besides the topic, because it can also be, okay, reaching out to this person who's really the expert on that topic, and it just is not a good match, and styles don't match, and then it's a pity. But maybe there's the next best in the row, right? You could reach out to or something like that. But these 2 points are essentially very important: shared interest and trust to build around a good collaboration.
Awesome, thanks, Barbara. Feel free to add to it, Sue, or we can, always feel free to mention if you should move on to the next question. Thanks.
Yeah, I second Barbara's comments. It's that, of course, certainly you really need to know the collaborator, that do you need something that the collaborator, you see, has that, you say, expertise or resources to offer, and keen to collaborate with you. And yeah, I also have the same sense that ideally you probably can through some small skill, you see, interaction or small collaboration, and then you see, you really know, you see, whether you have a kind of a matching style, as Barbara just now mentioned as well. You can really, you see, working together, you see, you are kind of in the same channel that can, or complementary channel that you can work together. Yeah, these are all important. So just now, initially, I also mentioned that personally, I feel that it's good that you see, communication, even over communication, that you can have, if really you have something that clear in mind, probably you can, you see, confirm schedule and expected outcome, so that both parties on the, you see, the same channel, that and then you still need to monitor the progress and adjust accordingly. Yeah, it's not that simple, not that easy. Yeah, so yeah, that's some quick comments. Yeah,
thanks. Yeah, so I think maybe the summary would be that it's don't find shortcuts. Good collaborations take definitely time to establish. Look for similar working styles and building trust, and show deep interest in terms of reading the work, having some initial ideas reproduced, baseline, these kinds of, it depends on the work, right? Totally, all of these will not apply to every project. And also one maybe last thing I can add before we move on to the next question is that because a lot of you have been asking about what if we don't get a reply, or like how to reach out in terms of the professor or the senior researcher. So talking to their PhD students, right, is also a very good resource where you can actually really closely look at the work of a certain specific PhD student from that group that you want to collaborate with, because if you're interested in a certain topic, it will have the students involved in that project who do all the great work. So reaching out directly to that student and being able to build that trust with them might also be a very good way to start, because they will not be getting hundreds of emails. They will have more targeted communication going on. And then the student could connect you to their professor after they've established that initial trust. Great. So I think some of the next questions, I mean, there's a lot of good questions. So maybe one of them that I see clubbed together several questions in a similar topic would be, again, going back to interdisciplinary collaborations. So for example, one person mentioned that if you are doing a collaboration from two different disciplines, NLP and education, and they publish in different venues, then how do you reconcile that? Another one was, if you're collaborating with social scientists or linguists, then what would be suggestions for communicating technical things without a shared vocabulary? So this could also be, we could spend a few minutes on this important question.
Yes, and so I think you mentioned some question regarding to interdisciplinary collaboration. While we work on NLP and someone else work on education, for example, then, I mean, of course, the other party may wish to publish at some venue that it's education oriented, where we prefer to publish some papers on NLP venue. So probably take turns, one each. Yeah. So really you kind of need to negotiate, and you see, because it's a collaboration that both parties need to be happy. Yeah. So both parties has you see, gain something from this collaboration. Yeah, that's my quick comments. Yeah.
Great. Yeah. So I would also second what was just said, and also another question was like how to discuss things without a shared vocabulary. Yeah. So both in, I mean, so first of all, answering the publication part, I think, yeah, like Sue said, it's pretty hopefully easy, where both parties will understand that yes, let's publish in both venues, right? Because you also actually get to learn much more from the new community that you're going into. So you should actually try to attend the conferences of that community, where you will get more domain expertise, right? Not just from the specific collaborator you are talking to, but the whole community. That's exactly the enriching reason or experience that you want from such collaborations. So I would actually encourage you to think the other way around, like not like in fact forcing yourself to publish in their community so that you can learn more from that. And hopefully the other way around happens from their side. So then there's no conflict. But the other thing was that these kinds of works naturally end up having, from my limited experience, naturally end up having aspects of the work that can be published in both venues, because there'll be certain aspects of the work that will fit better in the first venue versus the second. And then the second answer for shared non-shared vocabulary. So we have some recent experiences in, for example, collaborating with Cherokee and indigenous language linguistics department faculty, and also education department for student feedback in classes and other topics. So it's actually very fascinating to be able to, it gives you an opportunity to be able to explain things in a way that you're not talking to your community, right? But to someone who should be a user of your community's work. And vice versa. They are basically the domain expert, so they have to talk in a way that convinces you why that knowledge is really important. So to me, that's a very enriching experience, because you actually learn how to be able to talk at a level that the other discipline can understand your work and still appreciate it. So in the Cherokee case, for example, the topic would be machine translation. But there are some very nice ways to be able to not have a shared vocabulary, but still discuss the usefulness and power of general machine translation research. So yeah, so I would not feel that worried, or I would suggest you not to be worried about the non-shared vocabulary. It actually helps you to remove all the unnecessary details and the low-level details and mumbo jumbo, and focus on what's the most important part for building the collaboration.
Yeah, if I chip in on this, I totally agree with what has been said, right? Actually often these interdisciplinary collaborations, which also I'm very limited experience with, but they can really enrich you in you get a chance to publish in another community through the collaborators, and also read up on very different kind of works, which might give you very new perspectives, even for work done in their own field, in NLP. So it's enriching, definitely challenging as well, because like Sue said, it's very important to set the expectation right, or target at least, in the beginning, okay, we target this venue, or talk about that. It's going to be very important. The shared vocabulary, on the other hand, it's going to be important to be aware of that, right? That you actually, as Mohit said, you need to develop a way that you find this interlingua, right? That you don't misunderstand each other, perhaps, yeah, right? But be aware of it and be prepared to invest more time into this in the beginning, so that everyone is at least, you know, on the same space. Doesn't need to have the same vocabulary, but understand each other. But it's giving you really a chance of, you know, you are doing this in this way. What do you mean, right? Open up new dialogues, find out new things about how other disciplines work and what they do and what's actually important for them, or do these things, you know, do they see this problem the same way, you know, for instance, or how do they approach it? So it can be very, very general. You can start with very general questions and be curious to learn about others, but be prepared to, this takes usually more time than staying within your own community at the benefit of getting more impact down the line, essentially.
I think that's a good segue into one of the popular questions from the Slido page. How important is it to frame the final expectations of the collaboration? Does it have to be outright or go with the flow approach, something else? And there are a lot of sub questions related to this topic, like how do you define the schedule, the authorship order, and how do you maybe balance your own research with the new collaboration? So maybe I think Sujan already had some nice thoughts on the expectation part. So maybe
yeah. How to say? Yeah, I mean, because we are kind of a government research institute, and usually we really, you see, for our collaboration, we really have you see, research collaboration agreement even signed. Well, something interesting that I mean, if one finds the right partner, that you have you see, effective communication, since you can set a schedule based on initial investigation, and afterwards, because all you see, our work have research nature, there are uncertainties. So you can still, based on the progress, make adjustment. Then you see, that's the ideal situation when both parties are agree. Then you can adjust the schedule, or otherwise you adjust the outcome. That you have to do something, you see, from one of the, you see, with one of the parameter you have to adjust, you see, according to the progress. Yeah, so the authorship, you probably that you see who are the core people involved, and you have certain agreement. You see, you need to kind of. I feel that it's still necessary to inform, you see, relevant people at the beginning. What's their role in this collaborative work, and set expectations, and of course, well, along the, you see, progress and something else, you see, could happen, that something different from initial plan could happen. Then, I mean, you see, all the party needs to be reasonable to have some adjustment, you see, according to the progress. Yeah, that's the best thing that that is something in my mind. Yeah. Yeah. Mohit and Baba, yeah, you probably can add on that anything.
Yeah, Barbara, do you want to go first? Or?
Yeah, okay, let me go first. I add a few things here. It's very important to, so the question is about final expectations, right? For a collaboration. Maybe my thought here was, it's often not so super clear at the beginning what is the final expectation. there's a goal, a broad goal perhaps. And I think there are different ways here. One is really to set out and try to define it very well in the beginning to have a clear goal. But on the other hand, it might not be always possible, but then you need to weigh, okay, this is kind of well defined and, go that way, and I can put more or less these resources or this time in that. But sometimes it's also good to dare to go to some untouched, grounds, because then you can find out, okay, there's the flow of collaboration, the other approach was go with the flow approach, right? Sometimes daring also to go that way, because that can enrich you, and it might turn out to be, a very, very fruitful collaboration in the end, because you see that you're actually working very well, but you just didn't know exactly in the beginning how this will turn out. Now, this is, to balance this is the challenge, because if you take the other route, that's very safe in a way, because you clearly define the goal and expectations, but it might not be suiting everyone, right? Everyone works differently. And I think that's the key, to kind of get into, okay, how does this work? And to dare sometimes to go a little bit of another route that you perhaps didn't think in the beginning. And I would recommend doing that, but, always in mind to balance, so that, also the amount of projects that you do in parallel is going to be important. So as for PhD, maybe, you have your main project, maybe adding another one with someone else is good. Adding yet another one, you really need to think, is that a good idea or not at this point? So it's always a balance of resources and people and connections in a way to keep that in mind. And I'm not always super good in this myself.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so I think what was just said, I think it will very much depend on what kind of project the collaboration you are creating is looking at, right? If it's something very well defined, then you will have a schedule from maybe the professor or the industry researcher you're collaborating with, or maybe you go in, right, with a very concrete plan already. But many of the times, like Barbara said, it will hopefully be an opportunity to do something more crazy, right, more adventurous, non-pigeonholed, right, like what everyone else is already doing. Why start with that? So then it will, both parties will have to be more flexible, right, in the sense that as things progress, you can, and that's where the trust building that Barbara and I were mentioning in the beginning is very important, because you need to have that trust that people you're working with and hopefully reaching out to, you already trust them to be able to not do something strange in terms of authorship, or suddenly changing the schedule and saying, no, you need to now finish this in a month. No, I think if the shared goal is to do something impactful, then the schedule will be set in a way that you are reaching that goal. And most people, I cannot imagine sort of having some wrong authorship rules by the end of things, right? I mean, usually it gets defined by how much did everyone end up doing, and also joint authorship. For someone asked about cross-disciplinary projects. So if each student, for example, from each of the disciplines ended up doing as much for the maybe coding and computer science side versus maybe the education or social science side, then obviously they should have joint authorship. So most of the times, from my experience, the authorship is very naturally defined, and there'll be no sort of arguments or bad feelings about it. But in case you feel like you disagree with the authorship, then it's good to come on the same page, right? Have that discussion of why one person thinks the contribution is more or less than the other person. So I would focus on the trust and the impact of the collaboration. Sorry, yeah, please go ahead.
Okay. So I just like to add on that just now you say some well-defined scope and something collaboration style is a go with the flow. So I initially mentioned because kind of I come from a government research institute. So traditionally, you see, we have spent quite some time on project scoping. So the project is well defined, and then you see in the recent year, it's just the pace become faster. So then you still have the initial part of the project, you see, to scope the exact, you see, the detailed scoping. So that's also happened. And also I have a lot of collaboration with academia. So yeah, since it's more like go with the flow, and then we have something initial, and then we find that we need more students for certain topic in order to ensure the good outcome for certain topic. So yeah, it is also very important, as Barbara mentioned, that you need to judge, you see, your bandwidth. You see, you already have a certain commitment. Each of them are important. So whether it's suitable to take additional one, so you need to, you see, make a judgment whether you can, you say, take additional one to do some interesting work, which is still within your bandwidth to ensure the outcome. Yeah, that's my additional points.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, so 15 minutes left, so maybe we can move on to the next popular topic of, I guess I'll paraphrase it into a very simple comment of comparing collaborations with industry versus academia, and what are the differences, comparisons, pros and cons.
Okay, probably I'm the one that so it's that we can always call ours as a sandwich, that we are in between of academia and industry, as well as government organizations. Actually, even with industry, it's really case dependent. It's really depends. Some industry really the collaboration, they work together with you is a kind of a PR type of a collaboration, so go publication. So this one is more like you see, academia collaboration. And yeah, I think with the government, with industry, normally has a well-defined, you see, well-defined outcome. And for example, you need to, you see, justify whether the outcome was the investment. So there are certain parameters that you really need to, you see, pay attention. And so there could be some consequence if you don't meet such a certain requirement initially. Well, of course, academia is collaboration is a more kind of you see, publication. So that's a kind of a more, you see, like just now the term, you see, run with the flow. And you can you see, adjust. You normally is only have a relative broad theme direction, and you can still, you see, define what exactly you want to work. Depend on your investigation, you can still adjust. So that's I think, yeah, I think that I met, you see, enthusiastic academia that, I mean, the budget is not an issue. They keep on, you see, come up with ideas, organizing benchmark, organizing workshop. Oh my God, I would say that these are all good things to happen, very, very good. It's just that you need to manage your bandwidth. Do you have enough bandwidth, especially that if you have you invite more than, you see more project that you really need to manage. Yeah, I would say, yeah.
Barbara, should I go first, or do you? Okay, so yeah, my brief comment would be that at least from my perspective, we have a lot of also industry and academic collaborations. For example, I guess the industry one would be the obvious ones in terms of being able to do some shared research through either gift awards or sponsored agreements. But the academic one would be more for example, through maybe like government project collaboration team, which has 5-6 universities involved and students from all of these universities. So I think some of you were asking about proprietary data sets and other kinds of differences in industry versus academic collaborations. But my initial feeling would be that if you are reaching out to someone in industry versus academia for collaborations, you will probably end up having similar projects from both of them, because if there is some very IP or intellectual property or proprietary data set based project in the industry side, they'll probably not be able to involve some new person without connection to that company or without legal paperwork anyway, right? So probably you will end up talking to people like Sue was saying, who are more looking towards the publication side of things inside industry too. So I think both of them from that perspective will have similar collaborations, but it will still be a difference in the sense that, like Sue said, that the industry publication oriented projects might still have a specific target in mind, which fits into a certain piece of their bigger, maybe 1 year, 2 year, 3 year goals. And then in academia, you might find both. Like even in academia, there'll probably be some NSF or other kinds of international government grants like ERC and others, right, where they will be focused on something short term versus long term. So it will not always be crazy pie in the sky ideas. They will also have a lot of targeted ideas depending on if it's funding from a grant. So I think both of them will have long-term versus short-term projects, but I don't think you will get into the proprietary or IP side of the industry collaborations anyway if you're not signed up legally as an employee for that industry team.
Yeah, I don't have so much to add to this, actually. I think many things have been said already here.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I might just add on, yeah, just now what I mentioned, there are certain, you see, type of projects that I have been involved with government and industry is really translational. So I mean, there are well-defined, as also just now Mohit mentioned, that there are some IP issue involved. Yeah, well-defined scope, and you really need to reach the defined scope, defined requirement. So these are kind of a bit different from the academia collaborations. These are, I mean, usually it's good that if possible, you can have something small one to build up your experience, because it's quite different from academia collaborations that you can just use your creativities, and the main thing is publication. But translational project collaboration is you really need to have something concrete come out that you see integrated with the production platform. And to be a kind of a running system is quite different and need to be, you see, well-defined. Yeah, that's what I want to add on. Yeah.
Great, thanks. So maybe I'll club the last two popular questions on the chat since they're a little bit related and we might run out of time. So one question is how to make the best of your discussions with professors, both during a collaboration and otherwise. What are the ways to gain their trust? So maybe it's a sort of nice way to close the loop and go back to the initial discussions we were having about trust. And the slightly related second popular question is how to deal with discrepancy in terms of novice versus expert researchers when approaching certain field experts. It feels intimidating as an undergrad.
Maybe I can start with the last one, actually. Really like this question, right? To, you know, of course you feel intimidating in the beginning, but we all were there essentially. And the thing to remember is that as field, I think we are really nice and open field, and many of us are really approachable. So that's kind of a key message just there to approach people, also conferences and so on. And perhaps don't see it so much as, okay, there is an expert and I'm the novice, but like, don't think too much about that, but more like, okay, what can I learn? What can I bring to the table, right? You can surely also as a novice bring a lot of things to the table that the expert, always thinking, what can I learn from each other and bring and proactively, contribute to essentially build again back to the origin, build this trust and align expectations. That is certainly something you're gonna revise and revise according as it goes. And if something doesn't go so well, just, also speak about it, because if you don't speak about it, then this thing might just hang and then it might go, it might not continue going well. So yeah, that's I think what I would like to add here. How to make the best of discussion with professors. Yeah, this is also flowing into the trust, right? Think that you can really also contribute and be there. So we also, I think one very important point is to acknowledge what you know and what you don't know. Show that, don't hide it. I think it's much worse if you wouldn't, anyone is the expert and just knows everything. I think no one knows everything. So if we admit that, then that's fine. So to build this trust is then the key.
Yeah, so maybe just 2 cents from me on a similar thread is I agree very strongly with everything Barbara said. So basically, honesty is sort of the best way to gain trust, right? I mean, we as professors, we've been there, right? I sent emails as an undergrad from India, and then was able to do some research with really great mentors, and I'm really grateful for that. So I think if no professor is expecting an undergrad to, like Barbara said, know everything. I think the best part that I tell my undergrads is to not feel shy about asking strange and seemingly weird questions, because most of the times actually your questions will be very insightful and exciting, because the best part is you're not pigeonholed, right? Like most of us, where we keep reading the same things all over the same stuff, and we get very pigeonholed into the same kinds of thoughts, whereas you're coming in with fresh perspectives. So your fresh perspectives are very valuable. So no idea is a bad idea, right? All ideas are either good starting points or good clarifications, or sometimes exciting things that you didn't realize were exciting. So I think asking a lot of questions, sending a lot of thoughts, and not worrying about how they sound is the first important step. And the second important step is honesty, where if you don't understand something, or you're feeling like this is not a good match, or even if you think that, okay, this is something different from what I imagined, it's still good to mention that, as opposed to dragging it on, which affects everybody, right? So gaining trust is basically the whole process of having regular conversations, and also being able to decide what is working for you versus what's not. Because if everyone is invested in the success of the project and your success, then they will make changes accordingly, right? So that we can bring in more other kinds of expertise, or we can change your role in the project. So I think that would be the best way to increase the outcome and have the best maybe relationship with the professor and the collaborators, and also PhD students, right? Not just professors, because you can probably have more detailed conversations with them. So same thing there, right? Always pitch your ideas, don't feel intimidated, and also have very honest conversations about what your strengths and weaknesses are, because then at least we will be able to give you input, right? And material to be able to read, and homework to do, to be able to strengthen those weaknesses. So it's a process. I don't think anyone's sort of waiting for you to come with some magic spell and like, okay, like here's like, you'll do everything for us and we'll have like these awesome papers. No, I mean, it's a process of mentoring. And then it's very exciting for the professor also then to see you grow and do exciting things eventually on your own. So I don't think as an undergrad, anyone's expecting you to be a field expert and talk at the same level as the field expert, which was the last question on the Slack. So maybe Sujan, if you have any additional thoughts, otherwise I can just announce that last question to Barbara saying
yes,
to add
yes.
this. Oh, sorry,
Please go ahead. please go ahead. I think you and Barbara cover it very well. You are more expert than I am for this topic. Yeah, please go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah. So the question to Barbara, or when she was speaking, is to add to this, Barbara, how can you verify your ideas you might have if you are not knowing if they are even viable ideas?
All right. So one wonderful thing you can do is use your, if you are in a lab with other students, just, hey, can I grab you for a coffee or grab you for a moment? Just bring it off to your peers as well. Try to explain it to them. They might have another, view or idea. And so early feedback, essentially, if possible. And then perhaps you sit down and think about a bit more, and maybe you find some work, or at some point then, when you think this is right, then yeah, go and discuss it with the professor or in the lab. Maybe there's a chance of having research round and pinging this off. It depends on the lab, but the main thing is, in fact, talk to your peers, whatever, or even peers, other PhD students or other faculty in other parts of the university. Someone who is not exactly working on that might also have a good view on whether this is a good idea, or closer collaborators as well. So yeah, dare to I think there is not really a super bad idea. It maybe needs to be ripening. It needs to ripen more, because otherwise you would probably trash it yourself even at the beginning. Yeah. Hope that helps.
I think someone on the chat was mentioning that they have also been able to use this ACL mentorship platform to be able to discuss their ideas with each other. So that's a very exciting bonus that we are very happy about, and we're not anticipating. So that's also for everyone else who did not do that yet. Please use the Slack channel and other resources that we'll create to be able to also talk to each other, and use the community through this mentorship program also to be able to bounce ideas.
Maybe we can schedule some future Gather Town sessions where everybody gets there and cluster around. Thank you so much for the wonderful insights. And the questions are also great. Yeah.
Bye.